Shifting gears, I want to talk about food security among Inuit in the north and housing and suicide prevention measures. These are some of the 15 priorities the national organization representing Inuit wants political parties to focus on. Natan Obed is the president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami. And Mr. Obed, thank you very much for joining us on the program today. And I want to ask you about something you were talking to our CBC colleagues about, that you see this moment as similar to the 2005 campaign, and that followed the signing of the Kelowna Accord. Can you just sort of bring us back to that moment and why you think right now is connected to it?
Well, I think about the 2021 budget and it having a historic amount of funding for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I also think about the legislation that was passed in relation to Indigenous languages, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, also children in care, and think about just the amount of momentum that we have built now over the course of 5+ years on working together and partnering with government. And I just wanted to reflect and remind Canadians how tenuous that is. I was part of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami senior technical team in the Kelowna process. And that was about 2 years of work that we put into creating a new path between Canada and First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Mm-hmm. It was all just completely scrapped. And I just wanted to make sure that Canadians know that the things that we are celebrating, the things that we have accomplished, are not necessarily on firm footing. And the party that ultimately forms government will have a huge opportunity to further go down this path of reconciliation, but it is not guaranteed that a government will do that.
Are you concerned that that is at risk?
Well, Inuit are concerned every time there's a federal election, every time there are new priorities set, every time there are new governments formed. There is a way in which Ottawa resets, which often has an amnesia-like element to it, where a lot of the work that we have done with previous governments is lost or has to be restarted. We have seen some incredible positive movement in the last 5+ years, and we don't want to see any of that lost.
So I suppose I should ask you if you're endorsing any particular party in this election.
We will work with any government that is formed, but at the same time, we want to reflect on the progress that has happened. And we do celebrate the passing of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples legislation. If you think about Romeo Saganash and him bringing that forward as a private member's bill in 2 consecutive parliaments, and even bringing it forward and having it blocked in the Senate by conservative senators in the last government prior to this one. This is the way in which Indigenous peoples have been treated by certain parties. And we want to make sure that this is an election topic as well.
Yeah, I know I'm interrupting you here, and I'm sorry for doing that. I don't want to paint you in a corner here, Mr. Obed, and I understand that you're going to have to work with whatever party forms government, minority or majority. But you're coming here and you're talking to me about things that you see as accomplishments that have happened over the last 5 years during which the Liberal Party has been in power. And you're talking to me about the Kelowna Accord, which happened in 2005 and was, a large amount of money, billions of dollars, to improve the lives of First Nations, Indigenous, Inuit people, that was abandoned when the Harper government came into place. And it seems to me you're saying that you celebrate the moments that have happened under Liberal governments and you're concerned about what might happen under a Conservative government. Am I wrong in hearing it that way?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, I'm a politician too, right? So I'm trying to frame this in the best possible way, but also be very clear to all Canadians that you need to ask the leaders of each party what their true intentions are on reconciliation and how committed each party is to respecting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis human rights. And these are things that that I have referenced that are things that have happened. And yes, they follow party lines, but no matter what, we will celebrate any government that focuses on reconciliation, upholding our human rights, and also creating equity for Inuit in Canada.
So reconciliation, Mr. Obed, will actually be one of the 5 main topics discussed at the debates that are coming up, both first in French and then in English on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. But you're also releasing some things that you would like, issues that you would like all the federal parties to talk about: food security, housing, suicide prevention, some of those key ones. What would you like to hear both at the debate and from the leaders, specifically around Indigenous issues and issues facing the Inuit community?
Yeah. Well, having closely followed federal debates, I would like for the candidates, the party leaders, to answer questions that are posed to them with content. Often, party leaders really have no depth when it comes to having a plan about First Nations, Inuit, and Métis priorities and how to work in partnership with us. And so they revert to other issues in an Indigenous question. I find that completely offensive. And I do hope that in 2021, it is not acceptable for any party leader to use the time allocated to reconciliation to then switch into other areas that the party leaders may choose to want to talk about, even if the question is very specifically about reconciliation or priority areas for Inuit, First Nations, and Métis. I would like to hear party leaders talk with purpose and conviction about how their party would implement the calls for justice for the MIWG final report, how they would purposefully partner with First Nations, Inuit, Métis in implementing the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People legislation, and do so with the same clarity and purpose that they do on other policy areas that they've talked about on this campaign trail.
Natan, Obed, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.